In today's episode of Artisan Advice, I'll share 5 of my favorite techniques to avoid blurry portraits. Let's get into it with the first tip, using the right shutter speed. A slow shutter speed is easily the most common culprit of blurry portraits. If you're hand-holding your camera, use this simple rule. Set your camera's shutter speed so that it is at least 1 over your focal length. So for example, if you're shooting at 50 millimeters on your lens, aim for a shutter speed of at least 1/50th of a second. I typically default to doubling my shutter speed just to be safe, and it becomes even more important when you're shooting with longer lenses. As a general rule of thumb, shoot with the highest shutter speed that you can get away with while keeping your ISO low. The second technique has to do with holding your camera properly. Using poor camera holding technique can be one of the major elements to getting blurry portraits. To make sure your shots come out sharp, keep your elbows tucked in nice and tight, support the lens with your left hand, and press the camera gently against your face. The more stable you are, the sharper your images will turn out. This next technique is one that I use often when I'm shooting portraits in studio, and that's to use a tripod or a monopod. Recently, I had a shoulder injury that made holding my camera properly a little more difficult than usual. And that's when a tripod or a monopod might make the difference between getting a sharp shot or a blurry one. I tend to use a tripod in all of my commercial shoots to minimize the chances that my portraits might come out blurry. Give it a try in your next portrait session and you'll see how much better your images will turn out. Next, let's talk about focusing accurately. Sony Alpha cameras are the very best cameras out there when it comes to autofocus, especially when it comes to shooting portraits. Using a feature like eye autofocus increases the chances that your shots will be sharp, but there are some things that you want to look out for. First, always make sure that you're focusing on the eye that is closest to the camera, especially when you're shooting with a wide aperture like f1.4. It's also important to do what I call a quality check during your portrait session. Every 10 to 20 photos that you take, it's a good idea in the beginning of your session to stop for a moment and play back your images. Zoom into the eyes and double check to make sure that everything looks nice and sharp. This is also super important if you're using a non-native lens, since many third-party lenses use slower autofocusing motors that can lead to missed focus. It only takes a few moments to quality check your focus, and as a bonus, if you're shooting portraits in a studio environment, consider tethering so that you could see your images on a bigger screen. I've got a video on my personal YouTube channel going over the basics of tethering that we'll link in the description of this video. Now, this next technique is one that I swear by, and that's using burst mode. Especially when you're shooting handheld, it's a good idea to set your drive mode to low or medium speed continuous drive mode. Then every time you press the shutter button to take a photo, you'll fire off 3 to 5 frames in a quick burst. You'd be surprised how often the second or the third frame is sharper than the first one that you took. It's a simple trick that increases your odds of getting a tack sharp keeper, especially when your subject moves a little bit in between different shots that you're taking. If you want to max out your ability to take sharp photos and avoid blurry ones, combine all of these techniques during your next portrait session and make blurry photos a thing of the past. Let me know if you have any additional tips that you want to share with us in the comment section. And while you're there, be sure to like and subscribe to Alpha Universe to stay up to date on everything new. Before you head out, check out the videos that you see here on the screen, and I'll see you there.